the button and let me know. Okay. So good morning, everyone. My name is Manel Rivera, and that is my pleasure to welcome you today to this webinar number 14 already of the Clean Bus Europe Platform webinar series. So as usual, please keep in mind that this webinar is recorded. Also, please make sure that your camera and microphones are turned off at all times. You can place your questions on the chat, and we will address them at the end of the session if we have time today, because I'm very happy to present you this program. And we have a new setting for today. We will first have an impulse talk on the role of operators in the new eBus ecosystem by Bruno Lapeyrie from Keolis. And then we will put you into this very interesting panel discussion on the role of operators and other stakeholders to decarbonize urban transport. We are very happy to present you the speakers of today. We have Bruno Lapeyrie, he's the director of the Center of Excellence Energy Transition Bus at Keolis. Maria Wedenby Ahlberg, she's the head of public affairs in Volvo Bus Corporation. Gerard Hellburg, program manager clean and sustainable at Vervoerregio Amsterdam. And Alessio Tizzanini, head of global business development and sales in public transport electrification at Enel. So this great panel will be moderated by Umberto Guida. So Umberto, thank you. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Manuel. Good morning, everyone. So, as you have seen, we have a very tight agenda, and so I will go quite immediately to give the video to Bruno. Just to introduce myself, I'm Umberto Guida. I'm the head of project strategy in UITP, and I'm following since, let's say, 15 years the UITP activities on the bus, and in particular on the bus research. So, Bruno, when you are ready, you can immediately start.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here with you to share a few concepts and vision about the role of operator. And it will be an inception to have, I hope, an interesting chat with all the stakeholders that are represented today. In this session, I will share my screen, and please let me know if it works properly. Yeah, does it? It's good. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Isn't it a beautiful picture? Huh? Manufacturers are able to produce amazing vehicles, and this is one of the characteristics of the electric buses, by the way. The notion of image is very interesting. Keolis is briefly a multimodal public transport operator, strongly committed in decarbonation, and we expect that the half of our more than 23,000 buses operated today will be electric or hydrogen, but mostly electric by 2030. It's very close. It's a motion that goes very fast. We are on the way. We have more than 1,200 today, and it's growing very, very, very fast. And this is a new world that we have to prepare together, and a really new ecosystem. And to illustrate that, I start with the past or the current situation. This could be an illustration of the value chain for diesel buses. The world we've been known for now 40, 50 years, very stable, very easy to understand, business as usual. Quite simple. We have manufacturers, we have to manufacture the assets, and we have to operate and maintain. And with very few and stable players, the vehicles themselves, of course, all the OEMs we know, and we've been known for years now, many years. Energy suppliers, almost 100% diesel, quite simple, cheap, very easy to have everywhere, each corner, and sometimes a need of financiers to finance the asset. So everyone is stable, everyone knows the game he has to play, and sometimes some discussion on maintenance between OEM and operators, but nothing not a really big deal. This world is becoming, with new energies, electric, especially electric and hydrogen, like this. And this is the change of the paradigm. Everything becoming more complex and much less stable than it used to be. Because an electric vehicle is nothing without all the charging infrastructure and the system that has to be run with it. It's a system, and a system, it has to be designed with engineering capacities. Of course, you still have to manufacture all the assets. You have to build it, to test it, to commission it before operation and maintenance. And we talk more and more about the second life of the big part of the asset, which are the batteries. What was quite simple, I buy vehicles, I have gasoline or diesel, I have maintenance, mechanist, drivers, and I run my service, is becoming a project to implement, to design and to implement, and it takes a lot of time. And the players, the stakeholders, the stakeholders are much more numerous than before and much more complex. Of course, you still have OEMs, vehicles providers, but with a lot of new players that we didn't know before. You have the batteries themselves and the fuel cell, or the fuel cells plus the battery, which begin to have their proper life. And we see today that we know that battery manufacturers became vehicles manufacturers as an opportunity, for example. We have new services like battery as a service and the second life, which is becoming more and more important. As you know, a battery, this is 1/3 of the value of the vehicle. You have infrastructures, and you didn't have that before, to access to energy, CNG station, if we talk about CNG, but electric or hydrogen stations with new players, new way to buy, new volatility, by the way. IT is the backbone of all the system, and we will talk about that later. New energy providers, of course, and because the capex intensity is much higher, new way to finance all the systems. So much more players, much more faces, much more complicated. And because it is changing very fast, it's not stable anymore. And this is a characteristic of business. Everyone wants to take the place of the other as opportunities. So it's a kind of jungle and not easy, frankly speaking, to make a decision when you are a PTO or a PTA. That changed many aspects of this industry. And the first one, the relation with the stakeholder. Much more people than before, new players and so on. And two messages. When you are an operator and probably a PTA, you want to catch the opportunities that are presented, but we are not poker players. You want to avoid very risky adventures. And I used to say to my friend OEM that as an operator, we don't buy buses. We don't care about the buses. Really, we don't care about the buses. We buy reliable and available kilometers. Keep that in mind. We absolutely don't care about how the vehicle looks or who is manufacturing it. We need reliable and available kilometers. The economic model is completely different. If we talk about the total cost of ownership, the TCO, if you compare very roughly and don't look too close to the figures, but diesel to electric, it is still plus 25 to 30%. If we talk about 15 vehicles on 15 years as a principle. And the balance is completely different between all the aspects of the issues that are in this total cost of ownership: vehicles, battery replacement, infrastructure, energy, maintenance of vehicles, maintenance of the infrastructures. And the phenomenon is very simple. With diesel, you have 1/3 of CapEx, 2/3 of OpEx. And for electric, this is the contrary. 2/3 of CapEx, 1/3 of OpEx. And that has many, many consequences. The first one is that, of course, the CapEx intensity is much higher than before, and we have to manage that with financial, and it's not always easy. Second one, each time you manage to extend just a little bit the lifetime of the vehicle, it's decreasing the cost with electricity much more than for diesel. And this is probably something where to think about it with manufacturers. Third one, the more you run an electric vehicle, the less it's expensive compared to diesel. And you have many, many, many consequences. This is probably one of the most crucial aspects of this new industry. If you compare many different of energetic modes one to the other, as I told you, for electric, it is still plus 25 to 30% if we talk about urban bus. For hydrogen, it's much, much more higher. It's time by 2 or by 3, depending the situation you are. These figures are before crisis on energy price, which is another story. And frankly speaking, it's very difficult today to talk about the price of energy and the effect on TCO, because it's very volatile. And this is the illustration. If you look at the TCO of electric or diesel, there is an elasticity with the price of energy. In red here, this is the price of diesel and the TCO of diesel. And this is in green, the price of the kilowatt hour electric and the TCO of an electric fleet bus. And if you put that on a graph on the right side, when you're red on the left, electric is more expensive than diesel. When you're green on the right, electric is less expensive than diesel. And you put that with the value here of the gasoil and the electricity. Before crisis, we were here, 25, 30% for electric. Early 2022, we were here. Electric was less expensive than diesel because of the prices of energy. Today in France, we are here. Come back to electric more expensive because the diesel from operator is still 1.5 euro per liter, and the kilowatt hour is still very expensive. Could be here next year, I don't know. But as you can see, this gives a lot of value to a way to mitigate the volatility of the price of energies. And we have a lot of manners to mitigate this volatility. Because energy is not anymore a cost. Energy is becoming a resource, and you have to manage it. You have to reach it with an infrastructure sometimes. You have to build it. If we talk about electric, of course, and hydrogen, but this is the same for biogas and biofuels. It's not so easy to purchase than for fossil diesel. And because it's volatile and it's becoming more and more important in the P&L, you have to manage it much more than before. IT and data, it's crucial. You cannot run electric buses if you're not able to answer to this question. Where is parked my vehicle in the depot? Will it be ready to run the service is supposed to run in the coming hour or in the coming day at the time he's supposed to start? Can I manage, and I talked about managing energy, my power peak in my depot? Is it a constraint I want to have or not? Can I finish my block? Can I come back to the depot? And this is real-time data, of course. Is there any alarm system regarding a risk of thermal unbalement of my battery? And so on and so on. And we have defined by Keolis 3+1 level of system, more and more sophisticated when we jump on the level. Very basic of functionalities you must have regarding your depot management system, your charging management system, or the bus monitoring. And you can be more and more sophisticated and you can create value. And most of the time, each time you're more sophisticated, you have more full-time equivalent to operate the system. Less, sorry, full-time equivalent. In this landscape, battery is really our new border. It's 1/3 of the value of the vehicle. You have to change it after only 8 years. Even the OEMs don't always know what's going on in their batteries because it's suppliers for them. Who has the access to the battery management system? Can I repair or do I have to change it? What's the maintenance? What the guarantee conditions? It's very important, of course, and all these data that are generated. Data, quite crucial. You understood it. The state of charge, the state of health, the number of cyclings are most of the time the condition to keep the guarantee on the battery. We have to get them, we have to store them safely, and we have the capacity. We must have the capacity to mine in it and to use them to improve and to improve all the systems and to manage fleets of battery as we manage today fleets of vehicle. Many systems do exist. This is a landscape of people Keolis is working with regarding only this IT system for DMS, CMS, and vehicle monitoring. Of course, we talk about environment, and this is the base of all this chat. Just keep in mind that when we talk about health, public health and pollution, it's particulate and NOx, and we talk about zero emission. And when we talk about climate, it's CO2, and we talk about decarbonation. It's not absolutely not the same thing. And most of the time, people mix everything all the time. But we have, as professionals, to be very clear if we talk about carbon or something else. Keep in mind that at least this is a French electric mix with a lot of nuclear. If we talk about the life cycle analysis, it's absolutely, even if you take all the life cycle, the upstream assets and the recycling, that electric is much more less carbonated than diesel. And this is because of the well-to-wheel and the operation time of the assets. And I can finish with some descriptions that could appear as far as I can see it in my position. The question of the range is still in the middle of the table. And this is what we see as an operator, that the range of electric vehicle is with all the manufacturers we are working with today. And frankly speaking, it's not really evaluating. Despite everything that we can read in the papers and all the miracles that appears there and there, the fact is that so far we still have a maximum of 250 kilometers of range, and that changed everything in the operation of electric buses. There are a lot of new technologies that are announced every day regarding the battery improvement. So far, we still are on lithium-ion batteries, and we are stuck in it. And all the new technologies don't really appear today on the market. Keep in mind that the crucial characteristic in transportation, of course, this is the density, which is the watt-hour per kilogram. And for lithium-ion cells, it's around 250. And this is for your information. For gasoline, it's 10,000. We are very, very, very far away today. Weight chasing could be a disruption. And today we have new manufacturers that are looking for a way to make lighter vehicles and to decrease consumption. Could be a way with carbon and so on. And if I come back to this value chain, I show you at the beginning of my speech, probably one of the main disruption could be a change in the economic model. Today, some service providers say, I take the risk of the battery and the capex, and I manage it as a service. I take it for you, no problem. You will pay your rent during all the time of your contract or the lifetime of the asset. And I say, well, I have the battery. I have a very good IT system with it. I can take it and provide it. Keep in mind, if you have the IT, you have the data. And then, okay, it's a question of capex on the battery. I finance. I have a bank with me. No problem, guys. Well, I can provide you the infrastructure. I have engineers. I will make the works, implement them, integrate them, and I will do the job for you. And why not the vehicle? Okay, you follow me, you understand me. There is a possibility that all the aspects of the new business, because you are new risk, is becoming an offer service by people who are not transportation operator or manufacturers. Maybe as a conclusion, more than ever, because it's kind of jungle, not easy to make a decision. We do believe in Keolis that PTA and PTO has to be on the same tandem, making decision, taking risk with all the partners and the new stakeholders or all stakeholders of this industry. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Bruno, for the, I have to say, honest and clear presentation and speech. I think the good and the bad has been put, and especially the disruption part. I think it's something we reflect and we are reflecting. One important point that I think you were mentioning is exactly about the partnership and the need of involvement of different stakeholders, or taking the role of different, let's say, that are normally different stakeholders. In this sense, we are seeing also new actors. You mentioned battery manufacturers starting doing vehicles. So we have new actors entering in the market, and we have new business models that are, I should say, popping up. And my first question I would like to make to the other panelists is exactly that they have experience in their companies to have been leader, let's say, integrator of a different, let's say, deployment of fleets or vehicles in different cities. So what has been their main, if I can say, challenge that they have experienced in this role? Then I would move to specific questions to each of you, and then I will be back to you, Bruno. So I would start from Gerard. Which are the challenges that you have experienced, especially when you were, let's say, when you are leading the, let's say, the deployment process, and in particular with the collaboration with the other stakeholders?
Yes, thank you, Umberto. We have learned a lot since we have been transforming our public transport system starting in 2017, I guess, with the Schiphol buses. Approximately 100 buses came into operation the 1st April of 2018. We had a lot of almost mistakes and a lot of points where we think we should have done better. One of the points we learned and we have changed in our future tenders was to extend the implementation period of the new concession period. Normally, we would have 1 year implementation time, so the new operator would have 1 year to get all the affairs in line and start operation on the 2nd Saturday on December. But now we saw that there was one big component added to the domain, that was the energy component. Applying for a new power grid connection and making sure that you have enough power at least 1 or 2 months before starting operation was really not doable in 1 year. So we extended that period to 1.5 years, so 18 months. So the implementation period would be 18 months instead of 12 months. And in addition to that, we started with our new tender and in a new area. We started with asking the power grid connection for power grid connections 2.5 years before the starting date. So then even before tendering out the concession, the new concession, we already started thinking, okay, what if we would have a new concession? What kind of power grid connection do you need? What kind of power do you need? What volumes? Where should they be? And can our power grid company deliver that connection? Because we heard some frightening news. When every time when we ask for a power grid connection, for example, at our Schiphol area, the power grid company said, okay, you can have that connection, maybe 5 MVA or 10, but it's the last bit we have left in this substation. And every time we heard, yes, it's okay, but it's the last bit we have in this substation. So then we realized, okay, this is going to be an issue, because this is only the first connection that we are applying for. And we are going to have not only for public transport, but also our entire mobility system and housing and industry. Well, you know, the energy transition. So I think that is the thing we learned the most, and still the biggest challenge is to have enough renewable power for your mobility system.
Thank you, Gerard. I have the feeling that this challenge will be a bit, let's say, common also to the others. So that's why I will finish with Alessio with this question. And Maria, so the challenge that Volvo has experienced in, let's say, in leading, in doing the integrator of deployment system.
Yes, and I think since we were quite early out and were able to do these small trials, we also had the possibility then to work together with different stakeholders and identify where are really the weak areas and where are the areas that we really need to improve. And I think that's what you know, just like Gerard is explaining here, that's what we are facing now in all these different cities. And it's an importance there to really, now we have this big scale of transformation ongoing here, but still we need to really be realistic also the pace of the change, because we don't want to end up with having systems that are not sustainable, and we want to have green electricity. We have to be realistic. So I think that's the one learning, that we have to move fast, but also in a realistic pace. So I think that's really one learning that we have so far. And what else can I say? I think I leave it for now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Maria. Alessio, then you also had the experience directly. Maybe for you was easier in this sense, at least to answer to this challenge.
Yeah, generally speaking, when we talk about challenges, first of all, as you said before, Bruno, it depends on the country we are talking about. If I go to United States and I propose to a PTO to electrify its fleet, maybe the first challenge is grid resiliency, because they suffer a lot of hurricanes. It seems to be a simple topic, but it's actually a big pain point for bus operators which are over there and are quite used to suffer grid outages for long periods. No? So, for example, in the United States, the main challenge we are addressing to electrify is related to resiliency, which means adding to the value proposition microgrid solutions, for example, PV plus storage or only storage as a backup. Okay, that's one part of the answer. In other countries, the main challenge is the TCO, for example, right? Because there are some countries that are tendering or evolving based on the total cost of ownership compared with the internal combustion engine, right? So, for example, in Latin America, where we are being very successful, most of our deals are based on a TCO comparison, right? Which means, of course, a proper management of all the different elements that are affecting the TCO. And I'm going to explain, to give you more details about this. In other cases, the main challenge is education, right? There are some not very mature countries or not very mature customers which are a little bit skeptical. Now, what Bruno before said a very, let's say, strong sentence, which is definitely a true sentence. Bus operators buy available and reliable kilometers. That's the main point, right? So if in a specific country electrification is not that used, first of all, you need to start working with the customer or with the prospect. Also, on one side, by developing case studies, engineering analysis, and feasibility analysis. On the other side, bringing to the table your experience, right? Because, and that's where it's very important to have a long track record. We are operating electric buses since 2017. So over these years, we learned a lot in terms of what could fail and how to, let's say, fix fast what failed. So just to give you a brief idea, Umberto, of how we address challenges and which challenges we do find.
Thank you, Alessio, and thank you to everyone. I would go now a bit more to each of you, starting with Gerard as a public transport authority. You explained the challenges, but how you see the evolution of the role of the authority in this? As we said, we are not anymore just buying buses or doing a tender for vehicles and so on. It's something much more complex. How is changing the role of the authority in your view, and also based on what you are doing in the Netherlands on that?
Yes, well, our role has evolved. we saw that we have been until 2 or 3 years ago, we were really prescriptive in our tendering. So we formalized our goals, what a PTO should do with in a requirement of in a schedule of requirements, and then we saw this whole transition coming towards us, and then we said, okay, now we should be really more a cooperating PTA, and not solely prescribing anymore what they should do, and that was because we learned of the first transition we made on the Schiphol area, where we also tried to cooperate with our operator during the implementation phase. We also tried to cooperate with the municipality and with Schiphol Group itself and the power grid company. And then it was all new to us that first time. And then, well, we did a evaluation and we said, well, we all made some mistakes, because it was true. We as a PTA made mistakes, the operator made mistakes, the power grid company made mistakes. It was a little bit more complex that Schiphol has its own power grid company, and they should realize the power grid connection on Schiphol self. But then that network must be connected to a bigger network of the normal power grid company, Leander is called. And that was exactly one of the challenges we had that we saw in that supply chain. Things were not connecting well, and that's something we learned, that actually just basic project management is really important when you start cooperating and being more responsible as a PTA. So when we started preparing the tender for another concession, we approached differently. We drafted networks for zero emission operation instead of only diesel. We drafted charging infrastructure. We calculated what kind of volume they need. And then luckily, I say luckily because it was not all that luckily, but then the COVID pandemonium came, Corona came, and then our concession was postponed for 1 year. And during that 1 year, we saw that some of the bus operators really made a step with range because of newer battery technology. And in the concession is called Zaanstreek Waterland, northern region of the Vervoerregio. Then we saw that we dropped from 8 charging points and 40 charging poles to 3 maximum, being on the depots and 1 in the public space. And then we did a draft network, and then we changed some of our variables, and then suddenly it was possible to have a fully zero emission operation with only 3 charging points, and that was very interesting. So it was sadly, of course, that we had to wait for our carbon reduction, because that's the downside, of course. But then we need far more or less charging infrastructure, far more or less power grid connections. One of the 8 that we identified first would not have a power grid connection for 3 or 4 years, and luckily that was one that got cancelled. So we just had a little bit of luck there. Let's put it like that. I think that signifies really the role that we need to play as a PTA. You must know what the needs of all these stakeholders are. You must understand why they act, how they act. And I think it's very important to have a cooperation with all the cards on the table, because in the end, we all try to work on a sustainable mobility system or public transport system. And it's not going to work if one party thinks, okay, maybe if I play my role like this, I can get more later. because we all know PTOs have to be have to make money. So it's only fair to let them make money, but it's only fair for us also to play a role well and guard all our public values in that way. So it's really cooperating and trying to make it together with the other players to have our system in check, and which is going very well, actually, if I may say. Well, and I'm very happy with that as well.
Good, and as you mentioned, there is a lot that you learn, let's say, in doing things in this process, and it's also, I think, important to have this type of exchanges and the report of experiences, exactly to not be scared, I should say. Maria, now regarding the manufacturers, in this sense, I remember at the beginning of the let's say of the story of the transition and the development of the products, there was a small production numbers. The market was requiring small numbers, and then the industry set for small numbers. Now we have also the CVD, the Clean Vehicle Directive, that is putting targets. We have the market, which is now, I would say, stably growing, if not booming in terms of orders. How is the manufacturers now are moving and are preparing themselves, and what is they say missing, or what is the relation also with something that is not done by you, like we were mentioning batteries and so on, which is changing also the way to produce the vehicles.
Yes, and thank you first for, it was very nice listening to Gerard and all the things they've done in Amsterdam. I think because they're really a role model here, that really planning from this perspective, and it's very nice to hear. So I think it's a lot to learn from many cities around. So thank you for that. And when it comes to the industry, then what we saw was in Bruno's presentation here, the complexity here, the old transition we are into now. And of course, it's a huge challenge for the bus industry to be there, having these products that are reliable and produce all these available kilometers. That is always our promise to do that. And then in parallel, we have these different technologies that we need to take into account. We have to be on the top of electrification. In parallel, we have still the combustion engine. There is still there. Might also be some new demands on the combustion engine. So we have in parallel to look on all these different technologies and always deliver. And that is our commitment, and also in a sustainable way. We started out, and I think it was mentioned before, looking into more like tailpipe emission. We want to have low emissions in the cities, low NOx and particulate matters and so. But we also address CO2 now, and we address the whole well-to-wheel perspective from the whole value chain of the vehicle and the whole electric bus system. And we are taking steps there, but I would say there is a lot to do in that area, and there will be a challenge also for the future. So I would say that, and we start with your question there, if we are ready there to meet the demands. During the pandemic, as also mentioned before here, we had a little lower demands for buses, and now that is keeping up. And we have had challenges when it comes to material shortages and so in the whole industry. And we also have inflation. So of course, there are a lot of challenges that we need to address, but I think that we are many players out now in the field, and I think we are ready to be there and deliver what's needed together, also mentioned with all these different stakeholders. Because we really want to have the bus that is good from a sustainable perspective. It does deliver what it should. And there are a lot of different solutions. But I think we have the competence to be there, and we have the capacity. So I'm confident for the future, yes.
Thank you, Maria. You didn't mention the energy on this aspect, but I think it's also one important point for Alessio. How do you see Enel and the energy companies to, let's say, to move to support the transition at the end, because it's, I mean, a lot is will be in your hands. You are already the public transport with the metro systems and so on since a lot of time, but that, of course, is changing the dimension, it's changing the model in this case. So what's going to happen on your side in the next period? How is going to be supported more the transition from the energy companies?
Yeah, thank you very much, Umberto, for your question. So basically, you're right. I mean, energy is a game changer here. No, Bruno have shown before a slide, very interesting slide, which clarifies how the electricity price can affect the TCO, no? Can make the difference between a competitive and a non-competitive total cost of ownership with respect to the internal combustion engine. So in this scenario, many of our customers are, let's say, one relevant drawback in terms of electrifying from our customer perspective is the volatility of the electricity price in the future. No? So one first action that could be taken from the electricity industry is to provide electricity at a fixed price over the contract duration. No? This is, for example, this is a matter of risk management. Clearly, this type of risk can be managed more easily by an energy company. So energy companies here can really boost the electrification transition. That's what, for example, we are currently offering in some Latin countries, in some European countries. Now we offer a price per kilometer, including energy as well. No? But it's important to say that for what concerns the energy sector, the way it can affect the transition toward electric fleet is not only related to electricity price. No, there are, I think, at least other three areas that can be explored. One is the local generation at the depot. No, for example, through rooftop PV. It's a game changer. It affects dramatically the energy cost. And that's, for example, what we are already doing in Latin America. On the other side, there is the use of energy storage, right? To provide bill reduction, DR services to the grid, and system resiliency, what I said before. And also second life value for batteries. If you are an energy company, you can extract value from these batteries by providing services. Final point is the noise and carbon footprint, provided that, of course, you supply green electricity.
Thank you, and interesting that you mentioned also the noise, which is one of the aspects of pollution that is also, let's say, a game changer. Where electrification is also a game changer, especially in the center of cities and with the narrow European streets, I should say. I go back now to Bruno. My colleague Aida, in preparing this webinar, used a nice term, the partners in crime. So having listened to your partners in crime, what is your reflection vis-a-vis your induction at the beginning of the webinar?
If we talk about crime, we must have a victim. I hope it's not the PTO. Yeah, well, more seriously, it's a chance to have all the stakeholders and all these fellows around the same table today. Some messages for the PTA. Please adapt your contract of this new reality. Really, the longer it is, the less risky it is for the PTO. I understand that we have a capex problem, and it's really becoming a big problem for private companies. And help us to address the residual value risk at the end of the contract. It could be a real nightmare for a public or private company to have a risk of hundreds of millions of euros that you have no idea on the way to manage it, really. For the OEM, I have so many messages. First, please deliver on time. First one, please, when you are committed on a date, keep it. Because there is nothing worse than signing a contract where you are committed to start operation on the Monday in January, and if you're not able to do that. Second message, be fair with the PTA and the PTO on the game around the data. There is a lot of value on the data related to the battery. No, everyone has a game to play with his own interest, but I mean, we can be very much more cooperative than today on this. And maybe the third one, we could work together to extend the lifetime of the electric vehicle compared to diesel. And this is a powerful lever to decrease the price, to work on sustainability, because lifetime is a basic parameter of sustainability, and to be more competitive, maybe compared to non-European competitors. And for energy suppliers, as you said, Alessio, help us to mitigate the volatility, not only by offering a fixed price, because it will be much more expensive for public transport if it is fixed, but to help us to build ways to mitigate it and to address it. And I'm very excited to be on the way to build a new business for PTA and PTO, which will be an energy to be active on the market, energy market, with the vehicle to grid system, as you said. I mean, we have to build that together. It's a new business we have to build together. These are basically my structural messages at this stage.
Thank you so much, Bruno. I think you have provided arguments for a new series of webinars, because every comments that you have done would be good for to be expanded. We have 5 minutes. I want just to let's say, to make you all the usual magic wand question, which means what is, from your point of view, the perfect let's say model, or if you have a magic wand, what would be your first step or your next step on this. Very rapidly, we have 5 minutes, and then we close, which can be a key message on your side. Gerard.
Thank you, Umberto. Well, if I would have a magic wand, I would have a fully sustainable mobility system for everybody in our region, with a neutral ecological impact, which contributes to the well-being of all our people. So inhabitants and people who are working or going to school, something like that. I think it's very important, next to the zero emission operations that we have, is to think about and to draft policy on the more circular approach to our mobility system. We just saw in the LCA scheme that Bruno shared that most of the CO2 emissions are being produced in the production phase and not in the operation phase. So while we have reduced the CO2 in the operation phase, we should really think about how we produce our materials and our assets, not only buses, but also roads, bridges, everything we need for our mobility system, and think about how we can reuse them, how we can repurpose them. Well, you know, all the R's, redesigning and everything, and just at the very last, recycle it, because that's also a way of using energy to gain raw materials again. But also very important to reuse the raw materials you can harvest from batteries and stuff like that. That being said, we see already some good points. The city of not the city in the city of Eindhoven, VDL has had 34 buses in operation since 2016, I guess, and those batteries are being used now as a stationary output at the RWE and Moerdijk for net stabilization. So we see some first steps being used, and I think that is good to see, because we are going to need a lot more stuff like that, and I don't want to use all the time, so I'm going to stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerard. Thanks to you, Maria.
I would like to see the cities to really look on the next step of public transport from a holistic view, to really put the bus in combination with other transport modes to get the most efficiency out of the systems, so we don't sub-optimize having the same bus routes as we had yesterday. We were running diesel vehicles, just trying to maximize the battery capacity in some of the vehicles. From a sustainability point of view, I think we should start to look on the energy that we need on board in combination with charging and time. These all goes together. It's a system thinking. And I think that is really the next step we need to take to take a holistic view, start from the beginning, even if that's really complex for the cities to start in that way. That's I think it's the solution for the future. And also we talked about life length here of vehicles. I think it's a great proposal there, Bruno, talking about having products that are on the road for many years. Also the batteries, it's great with this energy storage as well. We use the batteries for a second life, but I would also like to see remanufacturing of batteries, make the batteries last in the vehicles also for a long time, because that's the first step to take to really use the material in the best way. And again, not put too much batteries. It's a lot about batteries, big batteries on board, and that's the solution. I would like to see more combination with charging and new solutions in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Maria. Alessio.
Not easy to add something to what my colleagues already said. A couple of ideas. Maybe one is the asset sharing. No, Maria partially touched this topic. Once you have charging infrastructures, you can use them not only with buses but also with other stakeholders. Another possibility related to batteries, which are, by the way, the key here, and the discussion key, is also related to other technologies. For example, battery swapping is an interesting technology because it's modular and you can use it not only for buses but for other assets as well. By the way, this goes through a centralized asset idea, which is not easy to be achieved because this implies, let's say, wide consensus.
Thanks. Bruno, I would like to finish with you because we have one question. I don't know if you see the chat coming from Philippe Viret. It is about the ecosystem. If you see for the system integrators, which today are acting in construction and testing phase, also role on operation and maintenance.
Yeah, basically integration is during the construction phase. You have to make sure that when you push on the button, everything works and you have all the parameters you want to have and the data. But he's right. I mean, as it's a system, we talk more about optimization than integration, but you can try to improve it during the time. And I'm sure that Gerard in Schiphol, you improved it during the time because it's a system and you can change some parameter. And even in the way you plan it, you can change it regarding weather conditions, weather social conditions, and so on and so on. And you can play with that. So it's more optimization.
Thank you, Bruno. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, if I have a last word, I would be very happy
Yes, of course.
to say
Yes, of
something.
course.
We talk a lot about clean buses and changing energy, but please keep in mind that each time someone leaves his car to jump in a bus, it's a victory for the climate. And it's as important to offer, and I talk especially to PTAs, to offer an efficient and attractive system of public transport than to change energy to decarbonize the planet. It's even more efficient. I mean, and please never make a decision because you cannot afford electric to decrease the service because you want to pay more expensive for electric. It would be a nonsense. I'm sure you know that. It's obvious, but please keep that in mind.
Thank you, Bruno. I have to say you took exactly my final concept
Sorry.
that I was putting. So it was perfect. No, was perfect because
I'm sorry to
as
spoil
much
you.
more value, as much more value if said by you. Just recall that in an old project we were using the terms to move from an old polluting car to a clean new electric bus. So the concept is there is look to the mobility, and the bus has one of the solution to clean the mobility in the city. I just wish to thank you all, Maria from Volvo, Bruno from Keolis, Gerard from region of Amsterdam. Sorry, I mean I'm with my Dutch is almost not existent, and Alessio from Enel. Thank all of you for having been with us. We are 3 minutes only of delay, so we are almost in time in this sense. Yeah, thanks to my colleagues Manuel, Aida, and Flavio, and to all of you that has followed the meeting and the webinar today. I hope it was interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and you will get the information through the normal and the information and the registration, I think, through the main and normal link of the Clean Bus platform, which, by the way, I need to remind you that is an initiative of the European Commission, which is run by UITP, which is very proud of doing that on this behalf. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.